We're in Psalm 23 there a couple of nights, and we're going to Psalm 46 tonight. Psalm 46. Psalm 46, and we're looking at various psalms over the next period of time, and Psalm 46 this evening. Verse 1, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. Though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, Selah. There is a river. The streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged. The kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Come, behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow, and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. Be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Amen. And we know that God will bless the reading of his word to our hearts. As we think about this psalm, we think about the theme, Our Mighty Fortress. Martin Luther, speaking about Psalm 46, said, "We sing this psalm to the praise of God, because God is with us and powerfully and miraculously preserves us and defends his church and his word against all fanatical spirits, against the gates of hell, against the implacable hatred of the devil, and against all the assaults of the world, the flesh, and sin." Luther, of course, as most will know, is one of the key figures in church history. A man mightily used of God in the Reformation. The year 1527 was the most difficult in the life of Martin Luther. After 10 demanding years of leading the Reformation, a dizzy spell overcame him in the middle of a sermon on April the 22nd of that year, forcing him to stop preaching. Luther feared for his life. On July the 6th, while eating dinner with friends, he felt an acute buzzing in his ear, and he lay down convinced he was at the end of his life. He partially regained his strength, but a debilitating discouragement set in as a result. In addition, heart problems and other problems of his intestine escalated the pangs of death that he felt. Of this ordeal, Luther later wrote, "I spent more than a week in death and hell. My entire body was in pain, and I still tremble. I felt completely abandoned by the Lord. I labored under the vacillations and storms of desperation and blasphemy against God." Here's a man who was mightily used of God. And he found himself not only distressed with bodily weakness, but distressed in mind by great discouragement. And what was worse, the dreaded Black Plague had entered Germany and spread into Wittenberg. Many people fled, fearing for their lives. Yet Luther and his wife Katie remained, believing it was their duty to tend to the sick and dying. Although Katie was expecting their second child, Luther's house was transformed into what was really a hospital, where he watched many friends die. Then, without warning, his 1-year-old son Hans became desperately ill. And death was surrounding Luther on every side. He was driven to seek refuge in God as never before. And this Psalm 46 became the strength of his soul. As a result, Luther expanded it into the hymn with which he is known and made him famous, I suppose, in that sense. A mighty fortress is our God. I find it always a difficult hymn to sing. I didn't present it to Yvonne tonight. We're grateful for her stepping in to play, but I wouldn't ask her to go into that one. It can be difficult. But the words are beautiful. A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing. Our helper he amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing. For still our ancient foe doth seek to work us woe. His craft and power are great, and armed with cruel hate, on earth is not his equal. That word above all earthly powers, no thanks to him abideth. The Spirit and the gifts are ours, through him who with us sideth. Let goods and kindreds go, this mortal life also, the body they may kill. God's truth abideth still, his kingdom is forever. What words? What truth? Like Martin Luther, the author of Psalm 46, found solace and refuge in God during very difficult times. And perhaps you're in a difficult moment tonight in your life, in your mind, or in your circumstances. That's where you're at. Or who knows what difficult moments we could be at before the night's out, or tomorrow, or whenever. We don't know. The background for this song of praise, this Psalm 46, is unknown, but it was probably written after a military victory over a foreign power that attempted a siege against Jerusalem. According to the superscription, it was written by one of the sons of Korah and was for the director of music. Alamoth may refer to the pitch of the music, denoting it was to be high for the treble and soprano voices. I'm not sure it would have suited my voice at all, but there you are. Our mighty fortress. What a comfort this psalm is to all in trouble, in trial and trauma. I remember visiting in a home many years ago where there was death. A son had lost his father. He was greatly traumatized. I read this psalm. He said to me, "Mr. Smylie, read it again." And then he said to me, "Read it again." It brought such comfort to his heart. John Wesley's dying words, some of them at least, were, "Best of all, God is with us," were based on this psalm. Best of all, God is with us. Isn't that wonderful? To know that God is with us, no matter what you're going through tonight. God is always with us. May we be blessed tonight as we consider this particular theme, the words of this very familiar psalm. Now, we're going to begin to look at it tonight, and If I don't get the way through that I want to, I'll come back at it next week, God willing. So that's where we're at. The first three verses, the refuge. The refuge. God is a strong refuge for his people. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. He provides safety from discouraging and devastating circumstances. He is our immovable refuge. When we are attacked by the discouraging and distressing circumstances of life, God is our refuge. He's the one in whom his people will find protection and strength and stability. God is pictured here as a refuge, meaning a strong shelter from danger, an unconquerable fortress, or a walled city where protection is found. And that's the sense here. The word refuge in verse 1 means a shelter, a rock of refuge. You find it repeated in the psalm. There's emphasis upon this very truth about the Lord being a refuge. A stronghold, a high tower, a fortress. Again, we can draw in these meanings as well. And of course, God is a dependable refuge for his people. When everything around seems to be falling apart, he is our refuge. And you can find this in the Psalms. We'll cite a few verses just for your consideration. Just a few pages over there in Psalm 61. And then in a moment we'll go into Psalm 62. Psalm 61 verse 3. For thou hast been a shelter for me and a strong tower from the enemy. And a moment ago we were mentioning that he is a high tower or a strong tower. And then moving over to Psalm 62, verses 7 and 8. The psalmist says, in God is my salvation and my glory, the rock of my strength and my refuge is in God. Trust in him at all times, ye people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. Selah. You see the emphasis again? And then over to Psalm 142 and verse 5. Psalm 142 and verse 5. Now there are many other references, but these are just three that I'm referring you to for now. Psalm 142 verse 5. I cried unto thee, O Lord. I said, thou art my refuge. How emphatic that is. The psalmist is saying, thou art my refuge and my portion in the land of the living. Furthermore, when trouble found the psalmist, God was his strength. He said, God is my refuge, or God is our refuge and strength, upholding him to stand amidst the fiery trials. A very present help in trouble. To have trouble means to be in a tight place. To be restricted, tied up, or to be in a narrow, cramped place. You see, the psalmist here was thinking about being between a rock and a hard place with no way out. And sometimes in life, and maybe in your situation now, you feel, I'm all cramped into this space. There seems no way out of this trouble that I'm in. This trial I'm going through, this trauma that I'm feeling, this brokenness of my heart. yet God was with him. He said that he was a very present help in trouble. A very present help in trouble. An ever-present help. That's the meaning. Immediately present. You know, sometimes people with the best will in the world say they're there for us. But even though they may mean that and be sincere in saying that and prayerfully support us, they can be at a distance from us. But that's not the case with God. He's right beside us. He's near to us. He's always there. An ever-present help. A very present help in time of trouble. Immediately present, instantly available for his people. For he never leaves us nor forsakes us. He says in that wonderful verse in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. And the sense of it is, I will never, ever leave thee, and I will never, ever forsake thee. Isn't that good? It's all so positive. You know, we can get into negativity, and you just have to probably switch on your phone and immediately get into negativity. Or look at your newspaper. I was in the car probably most of the afternoon around, and then just taking a little break, lifted the newspaper, thought to myself, set it down again. All this negativity. Let's open the Word. Let's get to the positivity. God is our refuge and strength. Very present help in trouble. And then as we move on in the Psalm 46, verse 2 and 3, therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. Selah. Having understood the all-sustaining power of God, the psalmist said, therefore will not we fear. We will not fear. This is a bold statement of confidence in God, inspired by the greatness of the Almighty. We have a great God, an almighty God, an omnipotent God, all-powerful. Regardless of what the psalmist and the people of God face, or faced at that time, or we face in our time, we have no reason to fear. God is in control. He's in control. Do you ever hear people saying to you, where is God? People say that to me all the time. Where is God in this situation? Maybe a family member will say it to you. Or somebody in society, in the workplace, or someone you meet. Where is God? All this happening in the world. God is on the throne. He's never left it. He's in control. He never loses control. Though the earth be removed and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, verse 2. Here's a picture of confusion represented as a momentous earthquake that caused an upheaval of the tall, lofty mountains. And the earth may change, and the mountains may be hurled violently into the sea. There may be tsunamis and earthquakes. There have been and will be. Tidal waves. But all of these things are in the control of the sovereign Lord. You know, some people feel very insecure at the thought of approaching old age. Well, I suppose that's something we're dealing with. I'm dealing with it too now as well, so I'm in the same boat. We feel like the man who wrote the book with the title, How Not to Grow Old, while at the same time any sign of aging was his constant worry. If someone guessed his age or a couple of years younger, he was very happy. But the more he worried, the older he looked. There are others who feel insecure because they think that life is passing them by. The fear of being left out in contemporary society can be a fear for many. Young people in a situation, you think of young people going into university probably this week or maybe last week or whenever it starts, probably about now. Or some other field, maybe young people going into high school or secondary school for the first time, stepping away from primary education and into the big school, as I would say. All of these things can be very unnerving. Some people have the fear of never being able to be married, or never meeting that life partner, and terrible sense of insecurity and upset in the balance of life. But fear not. God is in control. God is in control. Romans 8:28. For we know, for certainty, that all things work together for good to them that love God, who are called according to his purpose. Not just some things, not just most things, not just nearly all things, but all things work together for good. God is in control of your circumstances and my circumstances, and always will be. Look at verse 3. Though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake for the swelling thereof, Selah. The restlessness of the sea is portrayed here. And the sea stands for that which is menacing. It stands for chaotic situations that defy any system or order. And insecurity may be caused by fear or moral and spiritual failure, earth-shaking circumstances as the mountains crash into the sea. The sea responds by flooding outside of its assigned barriers. When one's cherished ideals and values and standards are questioned, a sense of insecurity can overtake that person. A young Christian girl was brought up in the security of a good Christian home, well sheltered and all of those things. When she went to university, she had to stay in a hostel in a big city. You can imagine that, like a culture shock. Maybe you've been through that at some stage in your life yourself and you understand. The atmosphere there was very secular and worldly. She was greatly afraid that she would lose her spiritual standards and values. A great sense of insecurity gripped her. She felt the waves of worldliness and sin around her, that they were going to overwhelm her. The waters roaring. The mountains being carried or shaking, as it says here, with the swelling thereof. But you know God is in control of all of that. Circumstances may change, and they do. And all our circumstances change through the course of our lives. But God's covenant with his people will never change. How wonderful is that? God is not only almighty, but he's unchanging. He's unchanging. I refer you to a wonderful verse. I was looking at this verse today. I was blessed by, I'd read it many times, but just reading it again, refreshing your memory. Isaiah chapter 54. I must admit I love the book of Isaiah. I love all the Bible, but I love the very heart of the Bible, Isaiah. And chapter 54, and this is the verse 10. And it ties in with what we're saying here, or what the psalmist is saying in this verse, and in this psalm. For the mountains, Isaiah 54:10, for the mountains shall depart and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee. Neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith the Lord that hath mercy on thee. God's covenant. Isn't that wonderful tonight? What a blessing. That verse was to me this afternoon. I trust it will be to you tonight as well. Think about it. God is our high tower, our refuge in the uncertainties of life. The refuge. Now, that's where we leave it for tonight. I always remember Dr. S.B. Cook saying, don't give the people the whole loaf. Give them a few slices. And so I'll give you a few slices tonight to digest. We will return, God willing, to give you the rest of the loaf, God willing, next week. May the Lord be pleased to bless his word to our hearts tonight.